Chapter 22 begins the detailed study of the variables of locomotion. After establishing locomotion as central to physics, the book now asks a more fundamental question. What is the material subject that moves? The answer developed here begins with matter itself. Matter possesses characteristics whether it is moving or at rest. Yet, in the framework of this book, matter does not move by itself. This apparently simple distinction becomes the foundation for everything that follows. The chapter therefore begins with a striking proposition. Matter is motionless by nature. A stone lying on the ground, and the same stone in flight remain the same matter. Its mass, volume, structure and other characteristics belong to the body. Locomotion is an acquired condition. A physical body requires an acting cause, gravity, impact, explosion, or pressure impulse, to change its position. Matter is consequently the subject of motion, but not the initiator of its own motion. Once we accept that distinction, the need for other variables becomes unavoidable. If matter alone does not explain locomotion, we must ask what acts upon matter. The manuscript therefore separates matter from gravity, pressure impulse, and momentum. Gravity describes an attractive action associated with mass. Pressure impulse describes a sudden, directional action that initiates displacement. Momentum describes the acquired condition that carries motion after an initiating event. Matter is the carrier through which these relationships become physical. Chapter 22 then examines the characteristics of matter itself. These include mass, volume, density, temperature, cohesion, elasticity, sensitivity to gravity, response to pressure impulse, and other properties. In nature these characteristics are always intertwined. The method of the chapter is to isolate them conceptually, so that we can see what each contributes. A falling body highlights gravitational response. A spring highlights elasticity. A heated body reveals thermal behavior. The separation is intellectual, not a claim that nature separates these properties into independent substances. Mass comes first. The manuscript calls mass the fundamental and indispensable quantity of matter. Every material body possesses it. Mass must also be distinguished from weight. Weight is the force experienced because gravity acts on mass. Mass remains even when a body is weightless. In the chapter's framework, mass is the carrier of material characteristics, and the carrier through which momentum can be acquired. Without mass, there is no material body to receive an impulse, or carry acquired motion. Volume is the second major characteristic. Every mass-bearing material body occupies space. The chapter treats volume not merely as a geometrical measurement, but as an inherent extent of matter. Matter may be rearranged, fragmented, or recombined, but the manuscript argues that material existence cannot simply be compressed into nothingness. Volume also makes interaction possible. Bodies have boundaries, can collide, can contain pressure, and can participate in relationships. Density then becomes a derived relationship between mass and volume. Temperature and density show why different characteristics must not be confused. Temperature is described as an expression of internal activity, agitation, vibration, interaction and energy flow within matter. Density, by contrast, is a relationship between mass and volume. The chapter therefore distinguishes a characteristic that expresses internal activity from a characteristic that describes how matter is arranged. This is part of the larger method. Understand the individual role before combining the variables again. There is another important boundary inherited from the previous chapter. Space and time are not substances. Space provides the relational setting, in which we describe position, distance, direction and extent. Time provides duration and sequence. A body can be at rest while time passes, and it can move while time passes. Therefore time is not presented as the cause of locomotion. Space likewise is not another material body that pushes or carries matter. These are conditions in which physical events are described, not substances from which matter is made. Now comes the paradox at the heart of chapter 22. Matter is described as motionless and passive with respect to its own locomotion. Yet the same matter is also presented as the source of the two great forces involved in motion: gravity and pressure impulse. Gravity is an inbuilt characteristic associated with mass, and acts as the aggregating force. Pressure impulse arises from the physical condition of matter: temperature, volume, structure, confinement, chemical or energetic transformation, and can disperse matter. Matter therefore does not move itself directly. Rather, its characteristics give rise to forces that act upon matter. The manuscript presents these as two opposite expressions in the behavior of matter. Gravity is continuous and aggregating. It gathers, attracts and restrains. Pressure impulse is episodic and dispersing. It pushes outward, separates and initiates motion. This duality becomes one of the central mechanical ideas of the book. Matter provides the physical substance. Gravity gathers and regulates. Pressure impulse initiates and disperses. Momentum carries acquired motion. The forces can therefore be studied separately even though they arise through matter and act upon matter. The characteristics of matter become most meaningful when related back to locomotion. Mass determines the material quantity that receives and carries motion. Volume determines the space occupied and the boundaries through which interaction occurs. Density describes aggregation. Temperature expresses internal activity. Pressure can accumulate when energy and matter are confined. Pressure impulse can then convert that stored condition into a directional event. Gravity, in the manuscript's framework, is continuously associated with matter. Momentum is acquired when forces act. Matter therefore sets the capacities and limits within which locomotion occurs. A useful thought experiment in the chapter is the horizontal plane. Conceptually, if a material body is placed on an ideal horizontal plane, and no horizontal impulse is applied, it remains at rest. If a horizontal impulse is applied, the body acquires horizontal motion. After the impulse ends, the acquired momentum carries the body until another interaction changes it. Gravity acts in the normal direction in the framework of the book, so the example helps separate the initial impulse, the acquired momentum, and gravity's vertical role. The purpose is to make the variables visible rather than merge them into one explanation. We can now see the architecture of the chapter. Matter is the material subject. Its characteristics include mass, volume, density, temperature, structure and response to pressure. Matter is motionless by itself. Yet matter is also the source, in the manuscript's framework, of gravity and pressure impulse. Those forces act upon matter. Their action produces or changes momentum. Momentum then appears as locomotion, the displacement of matter. This is why the study of matter comes before the detailed study of gravity, pressure impulse, and momentum. The deeper lesson is methodological. Before asking why a planet moves, a projectile curves, or a star ejects matter, first ask what the moving body is. What characteristics does it possess? Which characteristics remain when it is at rest? Which appear under particular conditions? Which forces can act upon it? Which effects belong to the body, and which belong to the interaction? By separating these questions, Chapter 22 continues the work of Chapter 21. reducing confusion by separating overlapping variables. Chapter 22 therefore ends at a natural doorway. Matter is the subject of locomotion. Matter carries mass, volume and other characteristics. Matter does not move itself. Space and time are not substances. And, paradoxically, matter is presented as the source of gravity and pressure impulse, the two complementary forces through which the manuscript explains gathering and dispersal. The next question follows naturally. If gravity is an inbuilt characteristic of matter, how does gravity behave? What are its characteristics, its direction, its relation to distance, and its role in locomotion? That is the beginning of chapter 23. Gravity, the taming force of the universe.